What if the quietest person in the room was not the weakest, but the most dangerous? Society has sold you a counterfeit definition of confidence, a frantic performance that is loud, aggressive, and ultimately fragile. This is a profound lie. True, unshakable power does not need to announce itself. It is a presence, an atmospheric pressure that is felt before it is seen. It is a stillness that can break the will of others long before a single word is spoken. Today, the performance ends. You will learn how to forge this weapon inside you, a weapon they will never see coming. We exist in an era that worships the echo, an age that celebrates the hollow drum. From our earliest days, we are conditioned to construct a persona of confidence from the outside in. The world relentlessly instructs you to be the protagonist of every room. Speak first, speak loudest, interrupt to show engagement, and possess a pre-formed opinion on every conceivable subject. The mandate is to project an immaculate and unwavering image of success, a carefully curated facade, even as your inner world splinters into chaos. This is the conventional highway, paved with good intentions and populated by the masses. It is, however, the very architecture of profound weakness. This outward spectacle, this relentless performance of bravado, is not confidence. It is a suit of noisy, ill-fitting armor. It clanks and scrapes with every anxious step, a desperate metallic cry for attention, a plea for external validation. It is a ponderous burden, exhausting to wear, and under the slightest, most incidental pressure, it buckles. The carefully polished plates dent, revealing the terrified, uncertain individual cowering inside. The man or woman who wears this armor is condemned to a life of perpetual conflict. They must constantly seek out battles, not for any strategic purpose, but merely to prove the armor's worth, to convince themselves of their own strength. Their power is not an established fact, but a question they are constantly, anxiously asking of the world. Their entire sense of self becomes a fragile ecosystem, dangerously dependent on the reactions they can provoke. The intimidated colleague who yields a point in a meeting, the momentarily impressed date who mistakes arrogance for substance, the silenced dissenter who grows tired of the onslaught. His confidence is a delicate house of cards, built upon the unstable ground of others' perceptions. It requires constant maintenance and is vulnerable to the slightest breeze of indifference or challenge. This is the reactive mind. It is a slave to circumstance, and because it is reactive, it is tragically predictable. A true strategist, an opponent who understands this psychological machinery, can play such a person like a finely tuned instrument. They can skillfully provoke your pride to lure you into a reckless decision. They can withhold their praise, their nod of approval, and watch you grow desperate and clumsy in your attempts to win it back. They can calmly question your proclaimed authority, knowing it will trigger a loud, defensive, and ultimately foolish response. This noisy armor, which you believed was your greatest asset and protector, becomes your inescapable cage. It severely limits your range of strategic movement. It drains your finite reserves of mental and emotional energy, and worst of all, it broadcasts a detailed schematic of your insecurities to anyone wise enough to listen, not to the content of your words, but to the desperate, discordant noise that hums beneath them. You believe you are projecting an aura of strength, but you are only announcing your profound fragility. You are participating in a game you are mathematically guaranteed to lose, because the very rules of the game are designed to bleed you dry. This is the inevitable fate of all who build their house upon the shifting sands of public opinion. It stands loud and proud for a moment, a fleeting monument to ego until the first quiet, inexorable tide comes to reclaim the shore. The ancient masters of strategy, however, knew a different path. A path not of outward projection, but of deep internal cultivation. The great general and philosopher Sun Tzu, in his timeless and immortal treatise, The Art of War, laid down the foundational principles for a kind of power that does not need to shout, for it is as undeniable and fundamental as gravity itself. His wisdom, honed on the battlefields of antiquity, reveals that true confidence is not a performance you stage for others, but a state of being you achieve for yourself. It is a fortress, built within the silent landscape of your own mind, assembled stone by deliberate stone. This is the beginning of the transformation you have sought. This is the precise methodology for becoming dangerously confident. But let us be clear about the nature of this danger. The danger you will soon pose is not to the people around you. It is a clear and present danger to your own self-imposed limitations, a mortal threat to your fear, your hesitation, your procrastination, and the weak, indecisive version of yourself that you have tragically allowed to command your life for far too long. Sun Tzu wrote, "He who is prudent and lies in wait for an enemy who is not, will be victorious." In the great war for the sovereignty of your own life, the enemy is not a rival, a boss, or a competitor. The true enemy is your own impulsiveness. It is your untamed emotional reactivity. It is your chronic lack of deep, meticulous preparation. The noisy man, rattling in his cheap armor, is never prudent. He is a creature of pure impulse, rushing into every engagement, every argument, every decision, driven by the gnawing winds of his insecurity. He is the archetypal enemy who is not prudent. To become the victor, you must become his polar opposite. You must embody the strategist who waits, who observes, who comprehends that silence is not emptiness but a fertile void where wisdom can germinate. The first and most critical principle on this path is to consciously abandon the desperate, clawing need to act, to speak, to prove, to exist in the eyes of others. You must first learn the profound art of being still. This stillness is not passivity. That is the mistake of the novice. It is the stillness of a coiled spring. It is the deep, placid surface of the ocean that conceals the crushing pressure of the abyss. While the rest of the world is engaged in a frantic, noisy dance, you will be quiet. While the world is governed by knee-jerk reactions, you will be governed by deliberate intention. This cultivated stillness immediately renders you unreadable, an enigma. It forces others to project their own intentions, their own anxieties, their own half-baked strategies onto you, while yours remain perfectly shrouded in mystery. They will rush to fill your silence with their own nervous chatter, and in that chatter, they will unwittingly hand you the very map of their weaknesses. This action marks the first fundamental shift in the power dynamic. You cease to be a mere participant in the chaos and become a detached observer of it. From this new vantage point, you begin to see the hidden patterns, the predictable emotional loops and ego-driven scripts that trap almost everyone around you. And by seeing them with clarity, you are no longer bound by them yourself. Your confidence, unshackled from its addiction to external validation, begins its metamorphosis into an internal certainty. It becomes an unshakable foundation, a bedrock of self-reliance. This is not the fleeting confidence of the actor basking in the warmth of the stage lights, but the quiet, permanent certainty of the grandmaster who sees the entire board, 10, 15, 20 moves ahead. This is the genesis of real power, for the confidence that needs to shout is merely fear wearing a flimsy disguise. True unassailable strength has no need for an announcement, for that strength is not demonstrated in the clash of swords, but in the subtle art of shaping the battlefield itself. It is the victory won before the first move is ever made. Comment: My strength is silent, to forge your inner fortress, and subscribe for the coming lessons on the art of invisible warfare. You have turned away from the hollow noise of the world and embraced the profound power of stillness. You now stand at the threshold of the fortress, the silent citadel of the self. But a fortress is not wished into existence. It is engineered. Its invincibility is a product of its design, built upon unshakable pillars. These are not abstract philosophies for scholars to debate in dusty halls. These are the load-bearing principles of psychological architecture, the mechanics of an unassailable mind. What you are about to learn is how to construct the three great pillars that will support your inner fortress, rendering it impervious to the sieges of doubt, chaos, and the will of others. This is the science behind the serenity, the blueprint for a dangerously effective existence. The first and most foundational pillar is that of supreme preparation, born from absolute knowledge. Sun Tzu gave us the immortal axiom: if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. The modern world has corrupted this principle into the shallow mantra of faking it until you make it. That is the creed of the noisy armor, a desperate gamble on charisma and luck. The strategist leaves nothing to chance. His confidence is not a hopeful emotion, it is the earned consequence of meticulous, exhaustive preparation. It is the quiet calm of the master architect who has inspected every joint and measured every angle, not the baseless bravado of a gambler throwing the dice. To know the enemy, you must first redefine the term. Your enemy is rarely a person. It is the challenge that stands before you. It is the high-stakes presentation, the critical negotiation, the complex project, the difficult conversation. Your first task is to drag this entity out of the shadows of ambiguity and into the harsh, revealing light of analysis. Dissect it, dismember it. What are its components? What are the most difficult questions you could be asked? What are the strongest counter-arguments to your position? Who are the stakeholders, and what are their hidden motivations? What is the worst-case scenario, and what is your precise, pre-planned response to it? You must become the fiercest interrogator of your own plans. Fear thrives in the unknown. It is a phantom that swells in the fog of uncertainty. Your preparation is the cleansing light that dissolves this fog, systematically turning every shadow of the unknown into a familiar, manageable fact. Yet, this is only half of the equation. The more difficult and therefore more crucial task is to know yourself. This requires a degree of radical, unflinching honesty that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. It is a ruthless internal audit. Where are the precise gaps in your knowledge? What are your emotional tripwires? Are you susceptible to flattery, which clouds your judgment? Are you prone to impatience, which rushes you into costly errors? Does your pride cause you to double down on a mistake rather than admit fault? Do you become flustered when confronted unexpectedly? To know yourself is to map out your own psychological weaknesses with the dispassionate precision of a cartographer. For once a weakness is known, it can be fortified. If you know you get nervous, you don't just hope for the best. You rehearse your opening statement 50 times until it is pure muscle memory, an anchor in the storm of adrenaline. If you know you are prone to anger, you anticipate the likely provocations and prescript a calm, strategic, and disarming response. The confidence that emerges from this dual knowledge is of a different quality entirely. It is not a feeling you have to manufacture. It is a conclusion you have earned. You no longer hope for success. You have systematically engineered the conditions for it by eliminating one by one every identifiable reason for failure. The second great pillar is that of formlessness, the embodiment of an unbreakable mind. The master strategist wrote, "Be subtle, even to the point of formlessness. Be mysterious, even to the point of soundlessness. Thereby you can be the director of the opponent's fate. In the battlefield of daily life, your form is your predictable emotional reaction. Anger has a shape, panic has a geometry. Offended pride has a distinct and easily recognizable structure. When you exhibit these reactions, you become a fixed object, a stationary target. You are giving your adversary, be it a person or a situation, a clear and stable point of attack. To be formless is to achieve a state of sublime emotional detachment. It is to master your inner world so completely that external events lose their power to dictate your response. A sudden, unforeseen crisis does not produce the jagged edges of panic. It is met with the smooth, unrippled surface of focused calm. A personal insult designed to provoke does not trigger the hot flash of rage. It is met with a cool, detached observation of the sender's intent. You become like water. Water cannot be grasped. A sword slash leaves no wound upon it. A hammer blow cannot shatter it. It adapts to any container, yet it can wear away the hardest stone. This psychological fluidity is the ultimate defense. When others cannot read you, they cannot predict you. When they cannot predict you, they cannot control you. They will push expecting resistance and find only emptiness, causing them to lose their own balance. They will attack, expecting a counterattack, and be met with a silence that unnerves them. This strategic ambiguity disorients them. They are fighting against a phantom, a mist. Your formlessness creates a psychological vacuum that their own chaotic, predictable emotions will rush to fill, exposing their entire strategy and leaving them vulnerable. The third pillar is the mastery of the terrain. which makes you the master of circumstance. Sun Tzu dedicated immense focus to the different types of ground on which a battle could be fought: open ground, constricting ground, fatal ground. These are powerful metaphors for the psychological, social, and professional environments in which we operate every day. The terrain is the context of any interaction. The boardroom of a hostile merger is fatal ground, where a single misstep can lead to irreversible defeat. A casual networking event is open ground, offering freedom of movement. A bureaucratic system is constricting ground, filled with obstacles and limited pathways. The amateur, the man in the noisy armor, is oblivious to the terrain. He fights with the same brutish tactics everywhere, wasting colossal amounts of energy trying to scale sheer cliffs when a gentle hidden path lies nearby. The strategist, by contrast, assesses the terrain before all else. They ask the critical questions. Is this the right time, the right place for this engagement? Is the current emotional climate favorable to my strengths? A core element of a dangerously confident life is the wisdom to know which battles not to fight. It is the conservation of energy, the refusal to be drawn into pointless skirmishes on unfavorable ground. But the highest level of this principle is not merely choosing your terrain, but actively shaping it. The master strategist does not simply play the game, they design the board. This means setting the agenda before a meeting begins, framing the conversation in your terms. It means choosing the precise time and location for a difficult conversation, placing yourself in a position of psychological advantage. It is about building alliances and gathering information long before a conflict is even on the horizon. By meticulously manipulating the environment, you make your desired outcome the path of least resistance for everyone involved. Victory is no longer a struggle. It becomes a natural, almost inevitable consequence of the conditions you have created. This is the ultimate expression of strategic power, to win so decisively and so subtly on a battlefield of your own design that the opponent does not even realize a war was ever fought. These three pillars, supreme preparation, formlessness, and mastery of the terrain, are the very bedrock of your silent fortress. Upon them, you will build a confidence so deep and so real that it requires no announcement, no validation, and no permission. It simply is. You have laid the foundation. The three great pillars of knowledge, formlessness, and terrain stand firm, a testament to strategic design. But the most magnificent fortress in the world can be undone from within. Her citadel with a weak, indecisive, or volatile commander is not a stronghold. It is a gilded prison waiting to collapse. The ultimate theater of operations, the campaign that determines the outcome of all others, is not waged in the boardrooms, the social arenas, or the fields of competition. It is fought and won in the silent 6-inch space between your ears. To master the world, you must first achieve absolute sovereignty over yourself. This is the domain of the psychological battlefield, where the only true enemy you will ever face is the undisciplined version of your own mind. The first and most consequential victory a strategist must secure is over the insurgency of their own emotions. Your inner world is a kingdom, and your emotions are powerful, often rebellious factions. Anger, pride, impatience, fear, these are not mere feelings. They are potent forces that can seize control of your judgment and lead your entire kingdom to ruin. The common man is a slave to these forces. He believes his rage is a sign of his passion, his pride a mark of his integrity, his impatience a symptom of his ambition. The strategist knows these for what they are: critical vulnerabilities, open gates in the castle wall through which an enemy can pour in. Sun Tzu taught that a general inflamed by anger can be lured into a fatal attack. He knew that the red fog of rage is the most effective blinding agent in warfare. When you are provoked and you feel that familiar hot surge of indignation, you must learn to see it not as a personal insult, but as a tactical maneuver being deployed against you. The provocation is a baited hook. To react with anger is to swallow it whole. The true act of power is to observe this emotion rise within you, to acknowledge its presence without surrendering your reason to it. You let the wave crest and fall, all while your mind remains a calm, clear instrument of strategic thought. This dispassionate response is a weapon in itself. It is profoundly unnerving to an opponent who expected a chaotic emotional reaction and is met instead with a serene, analytical gaze. Pride is an even more insidious traitor. It is the whispering courtier in your mind that tells you that you must be seen as correct, that you must win every argument, that to concede a minor point is to suffer a major defeat. This ego-driven need is a glaring weakness. The strategist is utterly detached from this. The objective is what matters, not the validation of the ego. They are perfectly willing to lose a trivial debate to an inferior, to allow a fool to believe he has won a point, if it serves the larger long-term goal. They will appear weak by not engaging in pointless intellectual jousting, conserving their energy, and allowing their overconfident adversary to become complacent and careless. The mastery of pride is the understanding that the outcome of the war is infinitely more important than the outcome of any single meaningless skirmish. Impatience, too, is a powerful enemy. It is the drumbeat of anxiety that demands action now, that despises the slow, deliberate process of positioning and preparation. The strategist cultivates a profound, almost geological patience. They understand that timing is not just a factor, it is often the single most decisive element. They are willing to wait for the precise moment of maximum advantage, the investiture of a hawk, as Sun Tzu called it, when the enemy is most vulnerable, often through their own impatient blunders. To conquer these inner insurgents is to achieve a state of mental clarity that is itself a form of genius. It is to win the war before the first external move is ever made. Once this internal kingdom is brought to order, you can begin to consciously shape the way the external world perceives you. This is not about crafting a personal brand or being liked. Likability is irrelevant and often a liability. This is about the deliberate cultivation of a specific psychological presence. The goal is not to be loved or hated, but to be perceived as a force of undeniable reality, calm, calculated, and capable, a presence to be respected and on a primal level to be feared. This fear is not the product of threats or aggression. It is the natural human response to the unknown and the uncontrollable. Your formless, serene composure makes you both. You apply Sun Tzu's maxim: appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. To appear weak when you are strong is the art of strategic humility. It is possessing immense knowledge but choosing to listen instead of pontificate. It is having the perfect counter-argument but choosing a strategic silence, allowing others to overextend their positions and reveal their full hand. This calculated quietness makes people underestimate you. They become comfortable, less guarded, and in their complacency, they provide you with invaluable intelligence. Conversely, to appear strong when you are weak is the art of the unbreakable facade. In moments of internal uncertainty or disadvantage, you project an exterior of absolute, unwavering calm. You deny your adversary the psychological satisfaction and strategic advantage of seeing your distress. Your placid expression becomes a shield, an impenetrable wall behind which you can assess the situation and formulate your response, free from the pressure of external perception. This mastery of appearances decouples your inner state from your outward presentation, making you a strategic enigma. Over time, this consistent, deliberate behavior forges your reputation, and your reputation is your greatest strategic asset. It is a silent, invisible vanguard. It is the shadow that enters the room long before you do, preconditioning the interaction, setting the terms of engagement before a single word is exchanged. Every time you remain tranquil amidst chaos, every instance where you deliver a result with quiet competence rather than loud self-promotion, every argument you wisely refuse to be drawn into, each of these acts is a stone laid in the foundation of your reputation. This is not a passive process, it is an active construction. People learn how to treat you based on the standards you consistently enforce through your own conduct. When you have built a reputation for unshakable calm and strategic depth, the world around you begins to change. People cease bringing you their petty dramas and emotional outbursts, instinctively knowing such tactics will have no effect. They approach you with their most well-reasoned arguments, not their half-formed complaints. Your reputation becomes a passive filtration system, a force field that repels triviality and chaos, leaving you free to dedicate your energy only to what is truly important. It dissuades challenges before they are ever conceived. It is the embodiment of Sun Tzu's ultimate ideal, the supreme art of war, which is to subdue the enemy without ever having to fight. Your shadow does the fighting for you. You have learned to build the fortress within and to command the silent battlefield of the mind. You have disciplined the emotional insurgents and forged a reputation that precedes you like a subtle change in the atmosphere. Now, before we unveil the nature of the final, decisive action, the culmination of all your preparation, ensure that you are subscribed and that you have absorbed what has come before. The ultimate wisdom is not a single lesson, but the capstone placed upon a complete foundation. It is reserved for those who have completed the path. The moment of execution, in the grand strategy of Sun Tzu, is utterly misunderstood by the uninitiated. They imagine a climactic, violent confrontation, a furious clash of wills. This is the fantasy of the man in the noisy armor. For the true strategist, the decisive stroke is rarely a stroke at all. It is the final, quiet and seemingly effortless move in a game that was won long ago. It is the gentle release of a perfectly aimed arrow, whose trajectory was calculated in the stillness of the mind, not in the chaos of the fight. The quality of this action is described by Sun Tzu with a sublime metaphor. The quality of the decision is like the well-timed swoop of a falcon, which enables it to strike and destroy its victim. Consider the falcon. It does not engage in a frantic, exhausting chase across the sky. It ascends. It circles, patient and serene, a single focused point in the vast emptiness. It is observing, conserving its power, riding the invisible currents of the air. From its superior vantage point, it sees the entire landscape, the patterns, the movements, the minute signs of vulnerability below. Its attack is not an act of rage or impulse. It is a commitment to a single, perfect moment of opportunity. The strike is a swift, precise, and lethal convergence of potential energy and timing. To an observer on the ground, it is a sudden, shocking blur of motion over in an instant. The falcon does not struggle. It simply fulfills its nature. This is the model for your action, your preparation, your internal discipline, your mastery of the terrain. All of this is the ascent. It is the circling. While others are scrambling on the ground, consumed by petty conflicts and short-sighted maneuvers, you have been accumulating potential energy. The decisive stroke is the application of this energy. It is the critical business decision made with unnerving clarity while everyone else is paralyzed by analysis and fear. It is the single, perfectly calibrated question posed in a tense negotiation that exposes the fundamental weakness in your adversary's position, causing their entire argument to collapse upon itself. It is the flawless execution of a complex project, delivered on time and under budget, not through frantic effort, in a way that seems almost magical to those who did not witness the months of silent, meticulous planning. The defining characteristic of this action is its sublime efficiency. There is no wasted motion, no collateral damage. It is a surgical incision, not a bludgeoning. It is often so subtle that the person or situation it is directed at may not even comprehend the full extent of what has transpired until much later. They only know that the entire strategic landscape has been irrevocably altered in your favor. You did not outmuscle them. You simply understood the geometry of the situation more profoundly than they did. You did not fight them. You rendered their position irrelevant. Immediately following this decisive moment, the path of the strategist diverges completely from that of the common victor. The amateur, surprised and relieved by his own success, celebrates. He boasts. He seeks applause and recognition. He relaxes his guard, believing the war is over. This is a fatal error. For the strategist, the aftermath is the most critical phase. The true victory is not the stroke itself, but the new reality that it creates. Your response to success must be the same as your response to challenge. Calm, dispassionate observation. You do not celebrate, you consolidate. You watch the consequences of your action ripple outwards, studying the new dynamics you have set in motion. You analyze the responses of all involved, gathering fresh intelligence. The goal was never the fleeting thrill of a single win. It was the establishment of a new, durable, and advantageous peace, a peace on your terms. This is the principle of consolidation. You use the momentum from your success to reinforce your position, to secure your gains, and most importantly, to deter future challenges. This deterrence is the heart of the enduring peace. The way you achieved your victory, with such quiet precision, such apparent effortlessness, such devastating effectiveness, becomes a part of your legend. Your reputation, once a shadow, is now solidified into a monument. Potential rivals and future obstacles are not defeated by a new action. They are defeated by the memory of your last one. They look at the new reality you have architected, they study the fate of the last challenge that stood in your way, and they perform a simple, rational calculation. Engaging you is simply not a profitable venture. The cost is too high, the probability of success too low. They will choose to direct their energies elsewhere, towards softer, more predictable targets. This is the supreme victory of which Sun Tzu spoke. It is not a peace enforced by constant threats and aggression. It is a peace born from a deep, unshakable, and universally acknowledged competence. You have not won a battle. You have transcended the need for them. Your tranquility itself becomes your shield and your sword. And so, you arrive at the final philosophical truth of this journey. The dangerous confidence that was promised was never about becoming a menace to others. It was about becoming a mortal danger to the forces that once held you captive. Your fear, your doubt, your reactivity, and your dependence on the opinions of others. True power, the ultimate power, is not the ability to dominate others in conflict. It is the ability to shape reality in such a way that conflict becomes an irrelevant and unsophisticated tool. It is the power of the Grandmaster who arranges the pieces on the board so elegantly that victory is the only logical outcome. It is the power of the river that does not fight the mountain, but simply patiently wears it away. You have built a throne inside your mind, not of gold and jewels, but of silence, preparation, and unbreakable self-control. And because of the way it was built, it is a throne that no one will ever dare to approach with hostile intent. The supreme power is to create a world of your own choosing, a world in which your will is enacted not through brute force, but through the silent, irresistible current of your own being. The war is over, not because you vanquished all your enemies, but because you vanquished the only one that ever truly mattered, your former self.